Welcome. Let's dive into core Java exception handling today. I'll walk you through a mix of foundational and advanced questions. Ready?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Great. First things first, what is an exception in Java?
An exception is an event that disrupts the normal flow of a program. Java uses object-oriented exception handling, where exceptions are objects derived from the throwable class.
Nice. Can you explain the difference between checked and unchecked exceptions?
Sure, checked exceptions must be declared or handled explicitly, like I/O exception. Unchecked exceptions, like null pointer exception, are subclasses of runtime exception and don't require explicit handling. They usually indicate programming bugs.
Good. Now, what's the difference between throw and throws?
Throw is used to actually throw an exception in code. For example, throw new illegal argument exception, invalid input. Throws is used in a method signature to declare that the method might throw an exception, like public void read file throws IO exception.
Of course, Parag. Here's the conversation-style explanation of throw versus throws with examples and clarity, just like a live interview between an interviewer and candidate. Let's talk about throw and throws. Can you explain the difference between them and when to use or avoid each?
Sure, think of throw as the action. It's used to actually trigger an exception. And throws is more like a warning. It tells the caller, hey, this method might throw something. Be ready to handle it.
Can you give me a simple example of each?
Absolutely. For throw, imagine I want to reject invalid age input. If age is less than 18, throw an illegal argument exception, age must be 18 or above. Here, I'm actively throwing an exception when the condition fails. Now, for throws, let's say I have a method that reads a file. Public void read file throws IO exception. This tells whoever calls read file that it might throw an IO exception, so they should handle it.
Nice. So when should you avoid using them?
Good question. You should avoid using throws for unchecked exceptions, like null pointer exception. The compiler doesn't require it, and it clutters the method signature. Also, don't use throw inside a method unless you either catch the exception or declare it with throws. Otherwise, the compiler will complain.
Perfect. What's the role of the finally block?
The finally block always executes, whether or not an exception is thrown. It's ideal for cleanup tasks like closing files or releasing resources.
Can Java have multiple catch blocks?
Yes, you can have multiple catch blocks to handle different exception types. They should be ordered from most specific to most general. Otherwise, you risk unreachable code.
Let's say you want to enforce a business rule, like age must be over 18. How would you create a custom exception?
I'd create a class that extends runtime exception or exception. For example, class invalid age exception extends runtime exception, public invalid age exception, string, message, super, message. Then I'd throw it like, if age is less than 18, throw invalid age exception, user must be 18 or older.
Nice. Now, if a try block contains a return statement, will the finally block still execute?
Yes, it will. The finally block runs after the return value is computed, but before the method exits. It's guaranteed to execute unless the JVM crashes or exits.
Is there any way to prevent finally from executing?
Not under normal conditions, but it can be skipped if you call system.exit 0 before it, or if the JVM crashes, or if there's an infinite loop or deadlock in the try block.
Can you write a try finally block without a catch?
Yes, absolutely. Catch is optional. If we only want to ensure cleanup, We can use try finally without handling the exception.
Is this catch order valid? Catch exception followed by catch IO exception.
No, that's a compile time error. Exception is a superclass of IO exception, so the second block becomes unreachable. We must catch specific exceptions first.
What happens if an exception is thrown inside the finally block?
It can override any exception from try or catch, leading to exception masking. Since Java 7, we can use add suppressed to preserve both exceptions, but best practice is to avoid throwing exceptions from finally.
Let's move to advanced topics. What is try with resources?
Try with resources is a feature introduced in Java 7 that automatically closes resources like streams or DB connections. It's cleaner than manually closing them in finally and works with any class that implements auto-closable interface.
What is exception chaining?
Exception chaining means wrapping one exception inside another to preserve the original cause. It's useful when translating low-level exceptions into higher-level business exceptions. You can retrieve the original cause using getCause.
Can exceptions be thrown from static blocks?
Yes, but only unchecked exceptions. If you try to throw a checked exception from a static block, you'll get a compile time error.
How do you handle exceptions in multi-threaded code?
Exceptions in threads don't propagate to the main thread. You can handle them by wrapping thread logic in try-catch, using executor service with future.get to catch exceptions, or setting a custom thread.uncaught exception handler.
What happens if both try and finally throw exceptions?
The exception from finally will suppress the one from try. Java 7 introduced add suppressed to preserve both, but if not handled, the original exception can be lost.
Can we catch multiple exceptions in one block?
Yes, since Java 7 we can use multi-catch. Catch IO exception or SQL exception E, handle both. It helps reduce code duplication.
Last one. What's your approach to logging exceptions?
Always log the full stack trace using logger.error message E. Include context like user ID, operation, and timestamp. Avoid logging sensitive data. In distributed systems, structured logging with correlation IDs is a must.
Excellent.